In a quiet Florentine museum tucked between countless depictions of saints, angels, and solemn Madonnas, hangs a painting that at first glance appears ordinary. The Madonna with Saint Giovannino, dated to the 15th century, shows exactly what its title suggests: the Virgin Mary seated peacefully in a pastoral landscape, cradling the infant Christ. Saint John the Baptist, Giovannino, stands beside her. But up in the sky, just above Mary's left shoulder, there's something that doesn't belong. It doesn't look like an angel. It doesn't look like a cloud. It doesn't even look like anything remotely biblical. It looks like a metallic, disc-shaped object, suspended mid-air, radiating beams of light. And no one, not historians, not theologians, not even art critics, has ever fully explained what it's doing there. This work is widely attributed to Domenico Ghirlandaio, a major Florentine painter of the 15th century. However, Sebastiano Mainardi, his pupil and brother-in-law, and Jacopo del Salaio have also been proposed as possible authors due to stylistic similarity. No definitive documentary evidence survives, so the painting remains broadly placed within Ghirlandaio's circle of influence. This particular work, painted in Florence sometime in the late 1400s, became famous not for its religious message, but for the mystery floating silently above it. That object, dark, symmetrical, precise, has turned this otherwise traditional scene into one of the most debated images in Renaissance art. Because while most people see divine symbolism, some see something else entirely. So what's that mystery in the sky? Let's take a closer look. In the upper right portion of the painting, above the Virgin's head, a strange object hovers in the sky. It's oval in shape, darker than the surrounding clouds, and it emits thin rays of light. These beams stretch outward, falling onto the figure of a shepherd standing in the background. And here's where it gets even more curious. The shepherd isn't just passively admiring the view, he's shielding his eyes as if something bright has just caught him off guard. Beside him, his dog barks furiously at the sky. Well, neither figure is central to the painting. They're not saints, not disciples. They're background characters. But they're reacting. And that makes their presence feel intentional, as if the artist is whispering someone saw this. Mainstream art historians interpret the flying object as a representation of the divine presence, a kind of abstract placeholder for God watching over the Holy Family from above. That's not uncommon. In Renaissance art, divine intervention was often shown through beams of light, stars, clouds, or otherworldly glow. It was a visual language, one that operated outside strict realism. It's easy to dismiss as a stylized symbol of divinity or light. Except, it doesn't quite look like one. It doesn't have the rounded softness of a cherub or the layered glow of celestial halos common in religious iconography. It's just symmetrical and geometrically consistent. And this, naturally, has made it a magnet for speculation. It's been called everything from the glory of the Lord to an unidentified flying object, which, technically, both terms apply. To understand the debate, we need to step back into the mindset of the 15th century. This was the height of the Renaissance. Europe was rediscovering classical science, studying anatomy, astronomy, and geometry with a level of curiosity not seen since antiquity. Perspective, literally and figuratively, was changing. But it was still 2 centuries before Galileo would point a telescope at the stars, and 4 centuries before powered flight. So what could this painter have possibly seen or heard that made him include such a strange element? Some suggest it's allegorical. Others think it's based on visions, legends, or even celestial anomalies described in medieval chronicles. Or maybe, and this is where things drift into delightful speculation, maybe it's an early artistic memory of something no one at the time could quite explain. This isn't the only instance of a mysterious object appearing in sacred art. Take the Baptism of Christ by Aert de Gelder, painted in the late 1600s. It shows Christ standing in the Jordan River, and above him, a large radiant disc floating in the sky, beaming light downward. Not diffused light, not sunlight, literal spotlight beams, like something out of a Spielberg film. Art historians again call it a representation of the Holy Spirit, but it's hard to ignore how closely it resembles a UFO. Then there's The Annunciation with Saint Emidius by Carlo Crivelli. Painted in 1486, it features the Virgin Mary kneeling indoors, while a golden beam of light cuts through the air, descending from a floating orb in the sky, slicing through architecture, piercing clouds, and landing with suspicious precision right on her head. It's the sort of divine moment that feels one miracle short of a tractor beam. Or consider The Miracle of the Snow, painted by Marcellino da Panicale nearly a century earlier. In it, the sky above Rome is dotted with luminous round shapes, floating silently over the city, like a formation of glowing surveillance drones. Of course, all of these could be symbolic, artistic shorthand, holy metaphors. But when you see pattern after pattern of radiant discs in the sky, and witness after witness reacting with awe and fear, it's hard not to wonder, were they seeing something? Back in the Madonna with Saint Giovannino, the object's effect on the environment is subtle but specific. That dog. Dogs don't bark at symbolism. And yet here it is, mouth open, paws stiff, barking directly at the unknown object. The shepherd shields his eyes, and even the alignment of trees subtly draws your gaze upward. None of this is accidental. Renaissance painters, especially those trained in the Lippi school, didn't leave things to chance. They painted with narrative purpose. Every figure, gesture, and background detail was part of the story, which raises a deeper question. What story was the artist trying to tell? Was this a visualization of Ezekiel's vision, that biblical passage where wheels within wheels appear in the sky, surrounded by fire and strange beings? Was it a depiction of a miraculous sign reported by someone, a peasant, a monk, a traveller? Or was it an image of something else entirely? Something unknown, something observed but never explained. We have no surviving commentary from the artist. No letters, no diaries, no cryptic sketches in the margins of a dusty notebook labelled "Things Seen in the Heavens." Just this one painting. And that silence is part of what keeps the mystery alive. Of course, some will insist the object is purely symbolic, and they might be right. After all, Renaissance artists weren't fortune tellers. They weren't trying to depict alien spacecraft. They were trying to elevate the spiritual, to reach beyond the earthly, to paint not just what was, but what might be. Still, if you showed this image, the glowing disc, the beams, the witnesses, to someone without telling them the date or title, They wouldn't say Renaissance symbolism. They'd say UFO sighting. Maybe the real point of the Madonna with Saint Giovannino isn't to answer anything. Maybe it's to remind us of how much we don't know, how much wonder still hangs in the sky above us, whether that object is a symbol of divine presence, a creative flourish from an artist caught between faith and curiosity, or something far stranger. It does what great art always does. It stirs the imagination. It asks questions. It refuses to stay silent. And in doing so, it gives us permission, hundreds of years later, to keep looking up. Because maybe, just maybe, the truth was never meant to be hidden in the heavens. Maybe it was always meant to be noticed, quietly, curiously, by those paying attention. Still not convinced? Next time you're in a museum, don't just study the figures in the foreground. Glance up at the sky, because that's where the weird stuff hides. And sometimes, even 15th century painters knew it.